The projector clicked once, and Julian Whitmore stopped smiling. For 3 seconds, the courtroom heard only the soft mechanical hum above the witness stand, the dry shuffle of legal papers, and the quiet, uneven breath of Evelyn Harper as she stood 8 months pregnant beside her attorney. Then Julian's own voice filled the room. After she gives birth, we take the baby. Then we make Evelyn look unstable. No one moved. Not the judge. Not the reporters packed shoulder to shoulder in the back row. Not Celeste Monroe, sitting behind Julian in a cream designer's suit, her face suddenly frozen beneath perfect makeup. Evelyn did not look at the screen. She looked at her husband. Millionaire. Philanthropist. Man of the year. The man whose name was carved in steel across hospital wings, scholarship funds, and the glass tower of Whitmore Capital downtown. He had spent 10 years teaching the world to trust his smile. One video was about to teach them why they never should have. Stay with me, because what happened inside that courthouse did not begin with a lawsuit. It began in a house made of glass where every room looked expensive and every silence had a lock on it. 3 weeks earlier, Evelyn Harper woke at 2:13 in the morning to the sharp kick of her unborn daughter beneath her ribs. The storm outside rolled over Greenwich like distant drums, dragging silver flashes of lightning across the bedroom ceiling. Julian was not beside her. That was normal now. His side of the bed was always cold, the pillow smooth, the scent of his cologne already fading before sunrise. He called it work. She had learned not to call it anything. Slowly, carefully, Evelyn pushed herself upright, one hand braced against her lower back, the other resting over the small, urgent movements beneath her nightgown. I know, she whispered to the baby. I feel it too. The house was too quiet. 30,000 square feet of imported marble, white oak, Italian glass, and museum lighting, yet at night it felt less like a home than a display case. Julian had chosen every surface himself. Nothing soft, nothing warm, nothing that could remember a woman crying. Evelyn slipped her feet into slippers and followed the thin line of light coming from beneath his office door. She was not spying. That was what she told herself as she stopped in the hallway, heart tapping hard and fast under her ribs. She was only looking for him. She was only wondering why the man who barely touched her stomach in daylight was whispering about her child in the dark. Then she heard Celeste Monroe laugh. It was low, polished, and close to the phone speaker, a laugh that belonged in private clubs and boardrooms where people ruin lives without raising their voices. Julian said, "She signs the custody waiver, or the diagnosis goes public." Evelyn's fingers closed around the doorframe. The baby kicked again. Celeste answered, "And if she refuses?" Julian sighed, not with sadness, but with irritation, the way a man sighs when an employee misses a deadline. Then we move forward without her permission. The doctor will support the file. The board will support me. By the time she understands what happened, everyone will already believe she is dangerous. Dangerous. The word slid under the door like cold smoke. Evelyn stepped back, but not before Julian added the sentence that would follow her into every sleepless hour after that. Once I control the baby, Evelyn disappears from the story. Her hand flew to her mouth, not because she wanted to scream, but because she understood, all at once, that her marriage was not breaking. It had been built as a trap. The vitamins he insisted she take, the private doctor he chose, the assistant who checked her calendar, the driver who waited outside every appointment, the gentle warnings that she was emotional, forgetful, fragile. None of it had been protection. It had been preparation. Evelyn backed away from the office door, one step, then another, until the hallway opened behind her like a tunnel. She did not cry. Not then. Fear had a way of drying the eyes before it reached the soul. Downstairs, lightning lit the glass walls, and for one bright second she saw her reflection everywhere. Pale face, bare feet, one hand on the child Julian thought he could turn into leverage. Somewhere behind her, his office door opened. Evelyn kept walking. She had no money he did not monitor, no family he had not pushed away, and no proof anyone would believe. But she had heard the truth, and before dawn, she would find the one thing Julian Whitmore had hidden better than his affair, his lies, and his plans for her child. She would find the laptop. She did not find it that night. At dawn, Evelyn was still moving through the house like a ghost, opening drawers without sound, touching locked cabinets she had never questioned before, looking at her own life as if it belonged to a stranger. The office door was locked. The desk drawers were locked. The small black safe behind Julian's law books was locked too, hidden between biographies of presidents and a leather-bound Bible his mother had given him for Christmas. That almost made her laugh. Almost. By 7 in the morning, Julian came downstairs freshly shaved, wearing a charcoal suit and the expression of a man who believed the world existed to rearrange itself around him. Evelyn was sitting at the kitchen island with a cup of tea she had not touched. The baby shifted beneath her sweater, slow and steady now, as if listening. Julian kissed her forehead without warmth. "You look tired," he said. "Did you sleep?" Evelyn looked up at him and understood that this was the first test. Not in court. Not in front of cameras. Here, under the white kitchen lights, beside a bowl of untouched pears and a vase of flowers selected by a house manager who did not know her favorite color. "A little," she said. Julian studied her for half a second too long. "You should rest today. Dr. Ellison says stress is not good for you." Dr. Ellison. The name landed like a key turning in a lock. "The doctor will support the file." Evelyn lowered her eyes before he could see anything sharpened behind them. "Maybe I should call him," she said softly. "I have been feeling strange." Julian's face changed so quickly that someone less frightened might have missed it. A flicker of satisfaction. A tiny victory blooming at the corner of his mouth. "That is wise," he said. "I will have my assistant schedule it." There it was. Not concern. Documentation. He was not hearing his wife ask for help. He was hearing evidence write itself. After he left, the house became enormous again. Evelyn waited until the sound of his car faded past the gate, then walked straight to the wine cellar. She did not know why at first. Maybe because Julian had gone down there after every important phone call. Maybe because the door required a thumbprint and a code. Yet he had once told guests that wine was his only harmless obsession. Men like Julian did not hide harmless things behind biometric locks. The cellar was 12 feet below ground, cold enough to raise goosebumps along her arms. Rows of bottles rested in perfect shadows, each label angled outward like soldiers awaiting inspection. Evelyn moved slowly, one hand against the wall, counting her breaths the way the prenatal nurse had taught her. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Do not panic. Panic wastes oxygen. At the far end of the cellar stood a cabinet of rare bourbons Julian never drank. She remembered him entering a code once during a dinner party, laughing when a guest asked why he protected whiskey like nuclear secrets. "Sentimental value," he had said. Evelyn stared at the keypad. For numbers. She tried his birthday. Wrong. Their anniversary. Wrong. The gate code. Wrong. The screen flashed red, warning her one attempt remained before lockout. She stepped back, pressing both palms to her belly. What would Julian choose? Not love. Not memory. Control. Her eyes filled suddenly, not with tears, but with understanding. She entered the baby's due date. The lock clicked. For a moment she could not move. The sound was too small for what it meant. Inside the cabinet, behind 2 unopened bottles, was a flat black case wrapped in a silk scarf. Evelyn pulled it free, hands trembling. It was heavier than she expected. Not jewelry. Not cash. She set it on the tasting table and unzipped it. A silver laptop lay inside, old but spotless, with a black external drive taped beneath it and a cream envelope marked in Julian's precise handwriting. E.H. Mental file. Evelyn's breath caught. E.H. Evelyn Harper. Not Whitmore. Harper. He had not even used her married name in the file where he planned to erase her. The laptop screen opened to a password prompt. She tried the due date again. Access denied. She tried Julian's birthday. Denied. Then, almost against her will, she typed the name he used only when speaking to the baby through her stomach. Lily. The screen unlocked. Folders appeared in neat rows: settlement drafts, medical narrative, board control, Celeste plan, private recordings. Evelyn clicked the last one. The first video thumbnail showed Julian's office, his face half lit by the desk lamp, Celeste beside him with a glass of water in her hand. Evelyn pressed play. The audio cracked once, then cleared. Julian's voice filled the cellar. "The affair is not the problem. Evelyn is the problem." The baby kicked hard. Evelyn gripped the edge of the table. She had expected betrayal. She had expected cruelty. But when Celeste leaned toward the camera and smiled, saying, "Then make the world believe she is too unstable to be a mother," Evelyn understood the laptop was not a secret. It was a weapon waiting for the wrong hands. And for the first time in that cold room beneath her husband's mansion, she realized the wrong hands might be hers. For a long moment, Evelyn could not make herself stop the video. She watched Julian lean back in his leather chair with the calm posture he used on business news interviews, as if he were discussing quarterly earnings instead of the destruction of his wife. Celeste sat beside him, legs crossed, tablet open, her voice crisp and bright. "We need a pattern," she said. "Not one incident. A pattern. Missed calls, emotional messages, concerns from the doctor, maybe a note from the house manager saying she seems confused." Julian nodded. "Already started." Evelyn's stomach tightened. On the screen, he slid a printed page across the desk. Celeste read it and smiled. Prenatal anxiety, sleep disturbance, paranoia, fear that her husband is watching her. She looked up at Julian. "That is elegant." "Elegant." Evelyn whispered the word in the cellar and tasted something bitter. Elegant was the word Julian used for charity galas, Japanese gardens, and black-tie dinners in rooms full of people pretending not to notice each other's sins. Now it was the word his mistress used, for a lie designed to steal a child from her mother. The video continued. Julian tapped the paper once. "Dr. Ellison will not say anything false. He will say he has concerns. That is all we need. The court fills in the rest." Evelyn stopped breathing for a second. Dr. Ellison's soft voice came back to her from the exam room 2 weeks earlier. "Are you sleeping, Evelyn? Do you ever feel watched? Do you sometimes feel unsafe in your own home?" She had thought he was being careful, kind, even. But every answer she gave had been a brick in a wall Julian was building around her. She closed the video and opened the folder marked medical narrative. Inside were drafts of statements, appointment summaries, and a timeline with color-coded notes. Week 28, increased emotional sensitivity. Week 30, isolation from friends. Week 31, expresses distrust of husband. Beside one entry, Julian had typed in bold letters, "Useful if emergency custody needed." The words blurred. Evelyn grabbed the edge of the table and lowered herself into the nearest chair before her knees could fail her. Cold pressed through her sweater. The cellar smelled of oak barrels, dust, and expensive liquor, but underneath it she smelled the faint metallic scent of fear. Her fear, her child's future, her name being turned into evidence against her. Then the laptop chimed. One file had finished syncing from the external drive. Evelyn flinched, then looked down. A new folder appeared that had not been visible before. Recovered cash. She should have closed it. She should have taken the laptop and left. But survival has a strange voice. It does not always scream. Sometimes it whispers, "Open one more door." Evelyn clicked. The folder contained older video clips, lower quality, dated 4 years earlier. One name repeated again and again. Claire. Claire Settlement. Claire Risk. Claire Final. Evelyn went still. Claire had been Julian's first wife. In the official story, she had left him after a quiet separation, overwhelmed by depression and public life. Julian spoke of her with polite sadness at fundraisers, as if she were a tragedy he had survived with dignity. Evelyn had once asked where Claire was now. He had answered, "Some people choose to disappear." On the screen, a thumbnail showed the same wine cellar, same tasting table, same rows of bottles sleeping in the dark. But the woman sitting there was not Evelyn. She was blonde, thin, maybe 35, wearing a navy sweater and holding a tissue in both hands. Evelyn clicked play. The image shook slightly, as if recorded from a hidden camera. Claire's voice trembled through the speakers. "Julian, please. You cannot take my son. I will sign whatever you want. I will leave the company alone. Just do not do this." Julian stood off camera, his shadow long against the cabinet. "You should have thought about that before you became unpredictable." Claire covered her face. Evelyn's hand moved to her belly. The baby had gone quiet. Not still, but quiet, as if even Lily understood that the room had changed. The next clip was shorter. Claire walking out of a courthouse side entrance, surrounded by cameras. A headline from a news broadcast embedded in the file read, "Whitmore heiress by marriage seeks privacy after mental health concerns." Evelyn paused it. Heiress by marriage. Mental health concerns. The same machine. The same words. The same invisible knife. She opened one last file. This one had no video, only audio. Julian's younger voice, colder than she remembered, said, By the time she tells anyone, no one will believe her. Evelyn closed the laptop so fast the cellar fell into darkness except for the keypad glow and a line of storm gray morning light under the door. She sat there, one hand over Lily, one hand on the black case, finally understanding the full shape of the trap. She was not the first woman Julian Whitmore had tried to erase. She was only the first one to find the archive. Upstairs, the house phone began to ring. Once, twice. Then Julian's voice came through the intercom, smooth as glass. "Evelyn, why is the wine cellar open?" The sound of Julian's voice through the intercom seemed to drain the air from the cellar. Evelyn did not answer. Her first instinct was to run, but the stairs suddenly looked too steep, the laptop too heavy, her body too slow for panic. She pressed one hand against the table and forced herself to breathe. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. The house had cameras in the halls. The cellar door logged every opening. The thumbprint scanner would show Julian's access from the night before, but the keypad would show hers now. He already knew. "Evelyn," Julian said again, still calm, still polished, as if he were calling her down to breakfast. "I asked you a question." She looked at the black case, the laptop, the external drive taped beneath it, and the envelope with her name reduced to initials. Then she did something that surprised even herself. She slid the external drive off the laptop and tucked it inside the waistband of her maternity leggings, beneath the loose fold of her sweater. The laptop went back into the case. The envelope went into her robe pocket. When she reached the top of the stairs, Julian was waiting near the kitchen, phone in hand, tie loosened, his smile almost gentle. That frightened her more than anger would have. "Could not sleep?" he asked. Evelyn made her voice small. "The baby had heartburn. I thought maybe there was ginger ale downstairs." Julian's eyes moved over her face, then to her hands, then to the black case. "And did the bourbon cabinet offer medical assistance?" She tried to laugh, but it came out too thin. "I saw it open. I thought maybe the house manager left something there." He took one step closer. Not fast, not threatening, just enough to remind her that every inch of the room belonged to him. "Give me the case." Evelyn's fingers tightened around the handle. For one terrible second, she imagined refusing. She imagined saying Claire's name, Dr. Ellison's name, Celeste's name. She imagined letting the truth explode right there under the white kitchen lights. But the baby shifted, and the movement pulled her back from the edge. Survival was not a speech. Survival was timing. She handed him the case. Julian opened it on the island, checked the laptop, checked the envelope space, and frowned. "Where is the file?" Evelyn blinked. "What file?" His gaze lifted. There it was again, the tiny crack in the marble mask. "Do not do this," he said quietly. "Do not make yourself look worse. Worse." The word landed exactly where he wanted it to, in the part of her he had trained to doubt her own memory. But this time it did not stay there. It passed through and found no home. Evelyn reached into her robe pocket and pulled out the cream envelope. "This?" Julian smiled again, relieved too quickly. "That is private legal preparation. You scared yourself because you do not understand adult matters." He took the envelope from her hand, opened it, and saw only blank printer paper. Evelyn had removed the real pages in the cellar and folded them flat against her stomach beneath her sweater. For the first time, Julian Whitmore forgot to breathe. It lasted less than a second, but Evelyn saw it. She would remember it later as the first visible sign that empires could bleed air. "Where are they?" he asked. "I do not know what you mean." The front door opened before he could answer. Mrs. Alvarez, the house manager, stepped in carrying fresh flowers and a stack of mail. Julian's expression changed instantly. "Husband again. Gentleman again." "Evelyn is tired," he said smoothly. She was confused this morning. Mrs. Alvarez looked at Evelyn, then at the case on the island, then back at Julian. Something passed across the older woman's face, too fast to name. "Of course, sir," she said. "Should I call Dr. Ellison?" Julian looked satisfied. "Yes. Tell him we may need to document another episode." "Another episode." Evelyn lowered her eyes and let the words fall into the room like coins. Each one had weight. Each one could be used. While Julian turned toward the window to take a call, Mrs. Alvarez moved quietly beside Evelyn and placed the mail on the counter. On top was a charity invitation with a tiny embossed seal. Beneath it, hidden by her palm, was a folded yellow sticky note. Evelyn waited until Julian's back was fully turned before sliding it into her sleeve. She walked upstairs slowly, as if defeated. In her bedroom, she locked the bathroom door, sat on the edge of the tub, and opened the note with shaking fingers. It contained only 7 words and a phone number. Call Naomi Brooks. He did this before. Evelyn stared at the name until her vision blurred. Somewhere below, Julian was telling a doctor how fragile his wife had become. But for the first time since 2:13 in the morning, Evelyn was not alone in the glass house. And the drive hidden beneath her sweater felt less like evidence now, and more like a pulse. The bathroom fan hummed above Evelyn like a tiny machine trying to cover the sound of her fear. She stared at the number on the yellow note until the digits stopped looking real. Naomi Brooks. The name carried a life Julian had slowly removed from her. College debates in Boston. Cheap coffee at midnight. 2 young women promising they would never let powerful men decide the size of their futures. Then came Julian, with flowers, private dinners, and careful questions about everyone Evelyn trusted. Naomi had been the first friendship he called toxic. Too opinionated. Too political. Too jealous of your happiness. By the end of that year, Evelyn had stopped answering Naomi's calls, not because she wanted to, but because peace in Julian's house always required one more surrender. Now that same name sat in her palm like a match. Evelyn turned on the sink, then the shower, then flushed the toilet, building a wall of harmless noise. Her hands trembled as she dialed from the small emergency phone she kept hidden in a box of prenatal vitamins. A phone Julian did not know existed because he had never once opened anything meant only for her body. The call rang twice. A woman answered, sharp and awake. Naomi Brooks. Evelyn opened her mouth, but no sound came. There were things fear did to a voice that no one could see. Hello, Naomi said. Evelyn swallowed. It is Evelyn. Silence. Not empty silence. The kind that fills too fast with history. Evelyn Harper? Naomi's voice softened, but only for a second. Where are you? At the house. Is he there? Evelyn looked at the locked bathroom door as if Julian might appear through it by force of will. Downstairs. Naomi exhaled slowly. Listen to me carefully. Do not confront him. Do not tell him what you know. Do you have something? Evelyn pressed her palm over the external drive beneath her sweater. A drive. Some papers. Videos. Naomi's voice changed. The old friend vanished. The lawyer arrived. What kind of videos? Julian. Celeste. Dr. Ellison. Claire. The last name struck the line like glass hitting stone. Naomi did not speak for 3 seconds. You found Claire? Evelyn's throat tightened. You knew her? I represented her for 6 days, Naomi said quietly. Then she disappeared from the case. The settlement sealed everything. Her family could not get near the records. Julian buried it. Evelyn closed her eyes. Beneath her hand, Lily shifted, small but insistent. He is doing it again. No, Naomi said, and there was steel in that one word. This time we stop him. A soft knock came at the bedroom door outside the bathroom. Evelyn froze. Mrs. Alvarez's voice floated in. Miss Evelyn, Dr. Ellison is on his way. Mr. Whitmore asked that you get dressed. Evelyn's pulse spiked, but Naomi heard the change in her breathing. Who is there? The house manager. Do you trust her? Evelyn remembered the sticky note, the look Mrs. Alvarez gave her in the kitchen, the way the older woman had said of course while her eyes said run. Maybe. Then use that maybe. You need to leave the house before the doctor arrives. Once Ellison walks in, Julian creates another record. Another episode. Another brick. Evelyn stood too fast and gripped the sink until the room steadied. I cannot just walk out. The gate logs cars. The driver reports to him. The cameras cover every hallway. Then do not leave like a wife, Naomi said. Leave like evidence. The words landed strangely, then opened. Evidence had to be preserved. Evidence had to be moved carefully. Evidence had to survive long enough to speak. Evelyn hung up and unlocked the bathroom door. Mrs. Alvarez stood in the bedroom holding a folded gray maternity coat and Evelyn's worn leather tote, the one Julian hated because it looked inexpensive. The florist van is at the service entrance, she whispered. They unload every Tuesday. Cameras in that hall have been down since last week. I forgot to report it. Evelyn looked at her. Why are you helping me? Mrs. Alvarez's mouth tightened. Because Mrs. Claire asked me for help once, and I was too afraid to give it. No. Apology could have filled the room the way that truth did. Evelyn put on the coat, slid the drive into a zipped pocket inside the tote. and tucked the folded pages behind a packet of hospital forms. Downstairs, Julian's voice carried from the foyer, smooth and pleased. "Doctor, thank you for coming so quickly. I am worried she is escalating." Evelyn stopped at the service hallway. For 1 second, she almost turned back. Not because she wanted to stay, but because leaving meant admitting the marriage had never been a shelter. Mrs. Alvarez touched her elbow. "Go." Evelyn stepped into the narrow hall, past silver trays, linen carts, and buckets of white roses meant to make the house look alive. Outside, rain misted the morning air. The florist van smelled of stems, damp cardboard, and soil. Evelyn climbed in behind a wall of flowers, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the tote. As the van rolled past the gate, Julian was inside the house telling a doctor his wife was confused, unstable, disappearing. He did not know she was already gone, and he did not know the thing leaving with her had his voice on it. The florist van turned onto the Merritt Parkway with Evelyn hidden behind white roses and eucalyptus branches, every mile pulling her farther from the glass house and closer to a version of herself Julian had never been able to control. She kept one hand on the tote, feeling the hard shape of the external drive through the canvas, and the other hand on Lily, who moved in slow waves beneath her ribs, as if reminding her that escape was not the same thing as safety. Her phone vibrated once. Unknown number. Then again. Evelyn did not answer. She watched the rain crawl down the van's back window in crooked silver lines while the driver, a young florist named Mateo, kept his eyes on the road and pretended not to know there was a pregnant woman sitting among the arrangements for a charity luncheon. 30 minutes later, the van stopped behind a brick law office in downtown New Haven, the kind of building that had no marble lobby, no private security desk, no gold letters on the door. Just a narrow staircase, an old elevator, and a brass plaque that read, Brooks Legal Group. Naomi was waiting at the service entrance in a navy coat, hair pulled back, face calm in the way people look calm when they are already angry. She did not hug Evelyn first. She scanned the street, guided her inside, locked the door, and only then placed both hands on Evelyn's shoulders. "Are you hurt?" Evelyn shook her head. That was easier than explaining all the ways a person could be harmed without a mark. Naomi's eyes dropped to her belly. "And the baby?" "She is moving." Naomi nodded once, like a judge accepting testimony. "Good. Come upstairs." Her office smelled of coffee, paper, and rain-soaked wool. No crystal vases. No staged family photographs. No room built to impress men who confused wealth with truth. On the conference table, Evelyn opened the tote and laid out the drive, the folded pages, and the cream envelope with her initials. Naomi did not touch anything immediately. She photographed each item, logged the time, then slipped on blue gloves. "Chain of custody," she said. "If this goes where I think it goes, every second matters." Evelyn sat down, suddenly exhausted. "Where does it go?" Naomi looked at her. "Court first, then possibly the district attorney." The words sounded too large for the room. Court, district attorney, public record. Evelyn had spent years shrinking her life, so Julian would not be displeased. Now one drive might drag his secrets into rooms where his last name could not protect him. Naomi connected the drive to an offline computer, the screen filled with folders. She opened private recordings, then medical narrative, then Claire settlement. With every file, her face lost a little more color. Evelyn watched the reflection of the video play across Naomi's glasses. Julian speaking, Celeste planning, Dr. Ellison nodding, Claire crying in the same cellar where Evelyn had sat that morning. Naomi paused the Claire file halfway through. "This is bigger than custody. What happened to her?" Evelyn asked. Naomi leaned back, jaw tight. Claire tried to challenge the settlement. She claimed Julian manipulated medical records and used private surveillance to discredit her. Then a sealed agreement appeared. Her attorney withdrew, and she lost access to her son. After that, she left Connecticut. No one in her family could reach her for months. Evelyn looked at the frozen image of Claire on the screen. He said she chose to disappear. Naomi's voice dropped. Men like Julian call it disappearing when the world stops hearing the woman they silenced. Before Evelyn could answer, the office phone rang. Naomi glanced at the caller identification and went still. Whitmore Capital Legal Department. She let it ring twice, then put it on speaker and hit record. A male voice came through, smooth and expensive. "Miss Brooks, This is Andrew Vale representing Julian Whitmore. We have reason to believe your office may be assisting Mrs. Whitmore in the removal of confidential marital property. Naomi's eyes did not leave Evelyn. Good morning, Andrew. We are prepared to file an emergency motion alleging theft, instability, and risk to an unborn child if the property is not returned within 1 hour. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the armrest. There it was. The machine starting. Naomi smiled without warmth. File whatever helps you sleep. The lawyer's voice cooled. You understand who you are challenging. Naomi closed the folder in front of her. Yes, a man careless enough to record himself committing crimes. Silence hit the line. Not long. Just enough. Then the call ended. Evelyn stared at the phone. He knows I came to you. Naomi nodded. He suspected. Now he knows. What do we do? Across the room, the office door opened and a man in a charcoal jacket stepped in carrying a hard case and a laptop bag. He was tall, black, maybe 40, with tired eyes that missed nothing. Naomi gestured toward him. Evelyn, this is Marcus Reed, former federal digital forensic analyst. He is going to make sure Julian can never say those videos are fake. Marcus set the case on the table and looked at the drive as if it were alive. Then we work fast. Evelyn felt Lily kick once, sharp and certain. Outside, rain tapped against the windows like fingers on glass. Somewhere across the state, Julian was gathering lawyers, doctors, and lies. But inside that small office, his empire had met something. It had never had to face before, evidence that could breathe. Marcus Reed worked without music, without coffee, and without wasting a single word. He opened a padded case lined with black foam, removed 2 clean storage drives, and placed the original on a right blocker before connecting anything to his machine. Evelyn did not understand the equipment, but she understood the reverence. He handled the evidence the way nurses handled newborns, carefully, quietly, knowing one wrong touch could change everything. Naomi stood beside him, arms folded, watching the file tree populate on the screen. Tell me what we have, she said. Marcus adjusted his glasses. Original recordings, internal timestamps, device identifiers, location metadata, deleted cache fragments, and what looks like automatic cloud sync logs that were later disabled. Evelyn heard the words, but followed only one thing. Original. Not imagined. Not emotional. Not confused. Original. Marcus opened the first video, then stopped it after 4 seconds. No obvious signs of editing. He opened the second. Dr. Ellison appeared, seated in Julian's office, hands folded over his knee, speaking in the gentle tone Evelyn remembered from exam rooms and blood pressure checks. I can document concern, he said on the recording. I cannot invent symptoms. Celeste's voice answered from off-camera. No one is asking you to invent anything, doctor. We are asking you to interpret what is already there. Julian laughed softly. Pregnancy gives us room. The room in Naomi's office went silent. Evelyn felt her face go cold, not because it surprised her now, but because hearing it with witnesses made the damage real in a new way. Marcus paused the video. That sentence matters. Naomi nodded. All of this matters. Then Marcus clicked into the recovered cache and frowned. There is more. The screen filled with thumbnail images from the wine cellar, Julian's office, the upstairs hallway, and a nursery Evelyn had never seen. The nursery walls were pale blue, not the soft green Evelyn had chosen for Lily. A crib stood beneath a framed silver airplane, and on the changing table sat a tiny blanket embroidered with a name. Thomas. Evelyn looked at Naomi. Naomi's expression changed before she spoke. Claire's son. Marcus opened a video dated 4 years earlier. Claire stood in the nursery doorway, voice low but clear. You promised shared custody. Julian's younger face appeared in the frame, calm and handsome and empty. Promises change when people become unfit. Claire stepped toward the crib, then stopped as if an invisible line had been drawn across the floor. I am his mother. Julian answered. Not if the court says you are not. Evelyn pressed both hands over her belly. There was no visible violence, no shouting, nothing crude enough for people like Julian to condemn. That was the horror of it. He destroyed women in clean rooms, with calm words, using systems built to sound reasonable. Marcus made a copy, then another, then generated reports with long strings of numbers Evelyn could not pronounce. Hash values, he explained. Digital fingerprints. If they alter 1 pixel, 1 frame, 1 second of audio, we will know. Naomi's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked at Evelyn. Julian filed. Evelyn's mouth went dry. Already. Emergency custody concern, protective financial order, and a request for psychological evaluation. Naomi turned the phone so Evelyn could see the line that mattered most. Respondent displays escalating paranoia and removed sensitive materials from residents. Evelyn almost laughed. He had written the ending before the story even reached court. Naomi's eyes sharpened. He wants a hearing tomorrow morning. Marcus looked up. That is fast. That is the point, Naomi said. He thinks speed favors him because fear makes people sloppy. Evelyn looked at the drive, the laptop screen, the paused image of Claire frozen beside a crib she had been told to leave. Then we cannot be sloppy. Naomi studied her for a second, and something like pride moved across her face. No, we cannot. The next hours passed in a blur of signatures, sworn statements, file transfers, and phone calls made from rooms with doors closed. Mrs. Alvarez gave a statement over encrypted video, hands folded tightly in her lap, as she admitted she had seen Claire crying in the wine cellar years ago and had watched Julian repeat the same pattern with Evelyn. A nurse from Dr. Ellison's office agreed to provide appointment notes showing Julian's assistant had requested language about instability before Evelyn ever reported fear. Then, just before sunset, Marcus found the file Julian had tried hardest to bury. It was not in the visible folders. It was inside a deleted archive labeled household maintenance. He restored it in pieces while everyone stood around the table. The video opened on Julian alone in his office, speaking into a phone. His reflection doubled in the dark window behind him. Claire was easy because she had no proof, he said. Evelyn is easier. She is pregnant. People already expect her to be fragile. Naomi whispered, there it is. Evelyn did not cry. The tears would come later, maybe in a hospital room, maybe in the first safe sleep of her daughter's life. For now, she only watched the man who had mistaken motherhood for weakness give the courtroom its sharpest weapon. The next morning, Evelyn walked into the courthouse wearing the gray maternity coat Mrs. Alvarez had handed her, with Naomi at one side and Marcus at the other. Julian was already there, surrounded by attorneys, cameras, and Celeste Monroe in cream silk. He smiled when he saw her, soft and pitying, performing concern for every reporter in the hallway. Evelyn placed one hand over Lily and kept walking. He thought she had come to defend herself. He did not know she had come to press play. The courthouse hallway smelled of rain, polished wood, and expensive fear. Evelyn felt it before she saw it. The way people turned when Julian Whitmore entered a room, not because they loved him, but because they had learned that money moved faster when no one stood in its way. He stood near the courtroom doors with Andrew Vail and two other attorneys, speaking softly to a reporter from a business channel, his hand pressed over his heart in a performance of wounded concern. Celeste stood a few feet behind him, cream silk smooth against her body, sunglasses resting on her head like she had arrived for a charity brunch instead of a hearing that could tear a family apart. When Julian saw Evelyn, his expression softened for the cameras. Evelyn, he said, stepping forward just enough for the microphones to catch his voice. I am so relieved you are safe. She stopped walking. Naomi touched her elbow, not to restrain her, but to remind her that silence could be sharper than any answer. Julian lowered his voice. This does not have to become ugly. Evelyn looked at him then, really looked at him, and for the first time he seemed smaller than the life he had built around himself. Not weak, never that, but contained. A man in a suit, surrounded by lawyers, afraid of a woman carrying a tote bag. The courtroom doors opened with a deep wooden groan. Inside, Judge Margaret Donnelly sat beneath the state seal, her silver hair pinned back, her glasses low on her nose, her face unreadable. The room filled quickly. Reporters in the back. Legal aides along the wall. Julian's team on one side, Naomi and Evelyn on the other. Marcus took a seat behind them with a hard drive case resting on his knees like a black box recovered from a crash. The hearing began exactly the way Julian wanted. Andrew Vail rose first, voice smooth as oiled glass, explaining that his client was a devoted husband facing a deeply painful family emergency. He spoke of concern, prenatal stress, missing confidential property, emotional instability, and a pattern of alarming behavior. Every phrase sounded careful. Every phrase sounded rehearsed. Every phrase was a clean white sheet thrown over something rotten. Julian bowed his head at the right moments. Celeste lowered her eyes at the right moments. Dr. Ellison sat behind them, hands folded, looking less like a healer than a man waiting for a storm he had helped create. Then Andrew said it. Your Honor, we are not here to punish Mrs. Whitmore. We are here to protect a child. The words passed through Evelyn like cold water. Lily moved beneath her hand. Naomi rose slowly. Your Honor, my client agrees this is about protecting a child. Julian looked at her with cautious approval, as if the first crack had appeared and the whole structure was about to fall his way. Naomi continued, but the question is not whether the child needs protection. The question is from whom. A low murmur moved through the room. Judge Donnelly looked over her glasses. Counselor, proceed carefully. I intend to. Naomi placed a small drive on the evidence table. We are prepared to show that this emergency petition was not prompted by concern for Mrs. Whitmore or her unborn child. It was planned weeks in advance as part of a coordinated effort to fabricate a mental health narrative, obtain custody leverage, and conceal prior misconduct involving Mr. Whitmore's first wife. Andrew Vail stood immediately. Objection. Unsupported, inflammatory, and outrageous. Naomi did not turn toward him. It is supported by original recordings, authenticated metadata, sworn witness statements, and a forensic report from Marcus Reed, formerly of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Digital Analysis Unit. Marcus stood just long enough for the judge to see him. Julian's smile vanished so quietly that only Evelyn noticed the exact second it died. Judge Donnelly leaned forward. You have video? Naomi nodded. We do, Your Honor. Andrew began speaking again, but the judge raised one hand. The room fell still. Naomi connected the drive. The monitor near the bench flickered blue, then black. The projector clicked once. Evelyn felt the sound in her bones. Julian turned his head toward her, and for 1 second his eyes were not charming, not wounded, not careful. They were furious. Then his own voice filled the courtroom. After she gives birth, we take the baby. Then we make Evelyn look unstable. Celeste's face drained of color. Dr. Ellison looked at the floor. The reporters stopped typing, as if even keyboards understood they were witnessing a door open that could never be closed again. On screen, Celeste leaned closer and said, We need a pattern. Missed calls, emotional messages, concerns from the doctor. Then Julian answered, calm and pleased. Already started. A woman in the back whispered, Oh my God. Naomi did not pause. She played the second clip. Dr. Ellison appeared, discussing documentation. Celeste spoke about interpretation. Julian laughed and said, Pregnancy gives us room. Judge Donnelly's face hardened, not dramatically, not theatrically, but like a courthouse door locking from the inside. Andrew Vail sat down. He no longer objected. Then Naomi opened the recovered Claire file. Claire's voice entered the room, soft and frightened, saying, You promised shared custody. Julian's younger voice answered, Promises change when people become unfit. Evelyn closed her eyes for one breath. Not from weakness, from recognition. When she opened them, Julian was standing. That laptop was stolen, he snapped. His voice cracked on the last word, and the crack echoed louder than the sentence. Naomi turned to him slowly. No, Mr. Whitmore. It was hidden. There is a difference. The judge struck the bench once, and the sound cut through the room like final weather. Sit down, Mr. Whitmore. He sat, not because he wanted to, because for the first time in years, someone in the room had more authority than his money. Naomi played the final clip. Julian alone in his office, reflected in the dark window, saying, Claire was easy because she had no proof. Evelyn is easier. She is pregnant. People already expect her to be fragile. No one whispered this time. No one moved. Even Celeste looked at Julian as if she had finally realized she had not been standing beside power. She had been standing beside evidence. For several seconds after the final clip ended, the courtroom did not sound like a courtroom at all. It sounded like a room underwater. No papers moved. No one coughed. Even the rain against the tall windows seemed to soften, as if the weather itself had leaned in to hear what Julian Whitmore had done with the life people trusted him to lead. Judge Donnelly removed her glasses and set them on the bench. She looked first at Evelyn, then at Naomi, then at Julian, whose face had gone pale beneath the perfect courtroom lighting. Mr. Whitmore, the judge said, this court is referring these materials to the district attorney's office immediately. Pending further investigation, your petition for emergency custody is denied. Any request for psychological evaluation based on the documents presented by your counsel is denied. Your contact with Mrs. Whitmore will be restricted through court-approved channels only. Andrew Vail stood halfway, then seemed to think better of it. There are moments when even expensive lawyers understand the ground has disappeared. Dr. Ellison rose from his seat as if leaving could make him smaller, less visible, less present in the recordings everyone had just heard. A court officer quietly asked him to remain available for questioning. Celeste did not move at all. The woman who had once designed narratives for powerful men now sat trapped inside one she could not edit. Julian turned toward Evelyn, and for the first time there was no performance left in him. No concern, no charity smile, no husband wounded by misunderstanding. Only disbelief. Not that he had hurt her, not that he had lied, but that the room had believed her. Evelyn met his eyes for one heartbeat, then looked away. That was the moment he lost the last thing he thought he owned, her attention. By sunset, the story was everywhere. Business anchors who had once praised Julian's discipline now spoke in careful, grave voices about criminal referrals, medical ethics investigations, custody manipulation, and questions surrounding sealed records in his first divorce. Whitmore Capital released a statement distancing the company from its founder. By the next morning, 3 board members had resigned, 2 government contracts were suspended, and the silver letters spelling Julian Whitmore's name were being removed from the lobby wall of the tower he used to call his monument. People called it a downfall. Evelyn never did. Downfall sounded too theatrical, too sudden, too much like lightning. This had been quieter than that. One woman opening a cabinet, one friend answering a phone, one house manager choosing courage a few years late, but not too late. One expert preserving the truth so it could not be polished into doubt. 3 weeks later, Evelyn gave birth to Lily Claire Harper in a private room at Yale New Haven Hospital just after sunrise. The baby weighed 7 pounds, 1 ounce, with a serious little face and a fist strong enough to close around Evelyn's finger as if signing a promise. Naomi stood near the window holding a paper cup of bad hospital coffee, crying without pretending not to. Mrs. Alvarez sent white roses, but this time they did not decorate a prison. They stood beside a hospital crib where a child slept under a name Julian had not chosen. Lily, for the daughter Evelyn had protected. Claire, for the woman who had once asked for help and became the reason someone else survived. Months later, Claire's family was able to reopen parts of her case. Dr. Ellison lost his license pending criminal proceedings. Celeste's career in crisis management ended with the one crisis she could not manage. Julian's empire did not vanish in a single day, but its myth did. And sometimes that is the real collapse. Not when the money leaves, not when the cameras arrive, but when people stop mistaking silence for innocence. Evelyn never watched the videos again. She did not need to. The truth had done its work. On Lily's first night home, Evelyn placed the external drive in a small fireproof box, beside the hospital bracelet and the folded yellow note from Mrs. Alvarez. Then she turned off the nursery light and listened to her daughter breathe. No marble halls, no locked cellar, no voice on an intercom asking where she had been. Just a mother, a child, and the kind of quiet that does not threaten. Some empires do not fall because a stronger man attacks them. They fall because one woman finally opens the door she was told never to touch. If this story made you feel anger, relief, or hope for every woman who has ever been called fragile while she was fighting for her life, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which moment stayed with you the most. Thank you for watching until the end.